I talked about this day zero situation once before in terms of Cape Town in South Africa. This is going to be around November 11th of this year. They're going to run out of water, and this is a critical situation for this area. And I think most people do not realize what's happening here, large scale. Now, we have the mayor coming out of this town, of the city, screaming angrily that no one seems to care. Everyone hears about it. They turn a cheek, off to do their own thing. No one seems to care. But she says, oh, you will when it hits your city. This is eerily reminiscent to what I've said before. All the times they would be bombing someone in another country and people would turn a cheek and say, oh, that's their problem. Let them deal with it. You see, when the tables turn and this crisis hits the United States, there's not going to be anyone out there to come to the rescue in either situation, because no one cared to help others globally or to stop the atrocities. You see, it will come back around. Now, I know here in America we have our own issues, but where we can help others around the globe, we should. Not leave it in the hands of some of these outfits that claim like they're going down to help people, like in Haiti, like with the whole Clinton Foundation and orchestration, and nothing gets done. The individuals that say they're going to go down there and build all these houses, and it never gets done. It's a huge scam. Now, Cape Town is just one of many different cities that is in the crosshairs here of losing all the water, all drinkable water. Now, I want to go over the list here and just name some of the top spots here across the globe so you get an idea of where is next. Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is an area that was devastated by droughts here within the past few years. The UN had this big mission to go down there and try to help. Even though they did that, it's still sitting, the reserves are 15% below where they should be. Moving on to the next city, Bangalore. This is in India. This is a bustling city that is growing, and they're having troubles keeping up with the growth of the city in terms of the water, the sewage, everything with it. That is another one at the top of the list. Following it is Beijing. Now, the World Bank classifies water scarcity as when people in a determined location receive less than 1,000 cubic meters of fresh water per person. In 2014, each of the more than 20 million inhabitants of Beijing had only 145 cubic meters of water. Now, China is home to almost 20% of the world's population, and it only has 7% of the world's fresh water. So in terms of food, water, and all these other things to feed their people, where do you think this is going to come from down the road? This is where something is going to have to give here on this world stage. Next is Cairo. Cairo. They're saying that the Nile is the source of 97% of Egypt's water, and that by 2025, they think because of pollution and everything else being dumped into the Nile, that Egypt is going to be in a dire situation, just like Cape Town is. Another here on the list is Jakarta. They say in Jakarta, there's 10 million residents, and that basically the practice of draining underground aquifers has basically deflated them. And they are in a bad position in Jakarta, just as the rest of the cities that I've mentioned, and followed by Jakarta is Moscow. They say 1/4 of the world's fresh water reserves are in Russia. 1/4 of the world's fresh water reserves are in Russia. But the country is plagued by pollution. They are dependent on 70% of its water coming from surface water. So even though they have vast amounts, 1/4 of the fresh water of the globe, they are polluting it. Now look at China's situation, where they just don't even have the water for their people. Okay, Istanbul follows Moscow. Istanbul saying that their water scarcity could hit this extreme level by 2030. Mexico City, following. They talk about water shortages being nothing new for the 21 million people in the Mexican capital. But with piping and everything else eroding and the lack of recycling wastewater, it's getting worse and worse in Mexico. London is one that many people don't think of in terms of having a lack of water, but they're saying that this is the case. They're going to have a supply problem by the year 2025 and a serious shortage by 2040 if things are not changed. And you're talking about throwing up desalination plants. We talked about this years and years and years ago. Finally, California and other places started doing this, and they see the benefits of it. Turning your salt water, this is a saltwater world, into clean water to use. So the more of these plants that they build and the more they're able to process, the more clean, fresh water people will have. Now, Tokyo in Japan, this is another one of those areas that sees a lot of rain, but obviously they have issues with contamination. Look at the whole situation where the earthquake hit, Fukushima, and all the contamination there of certain areas. They have to collect most of the water. Now, if a lot of this is coming in from an atmosphere that is being polluted by contamination constantly, you have to take that into account. Now, following Tokyo is Miami. Some people are saying, what? Miami? Yes, Miami. On the map, you have a United States city there. They're saying it's going to run out of fresh water before most. I mean, we've seen the situations in Michigan and in other places. Those cities not even on this list. Okay, but Miami making this top list, and they're saying that back in the 1930s, they were trying to drain some of the swamps in the area, and an unforeseen problem to that was that this allowed salt water to come in and invade their freshwater aquifers and taint them, contaminate them. Since then, water has been rising, and any of the underground barriers that they had up in place to try to stop that from happening, they're overriding it, and the problem is becoming more and more dire. But in terms of globally, these are some of the top cities you can expect to see issues from in terms of fresh water here in the future. And I wanted to make it clear, this is what's going on, and point out the cities that it's affecting. I'm going to leave a link. I'll continue to update as I come across more. This has been Dabu7. Much love, y'all.